All right, this is an interesting problem. It says, which of the following is not a correct description of the graph of the function y equals 3 over 4 times the quantity 8x plus 12? Now, we've always seen equations that are a little bit different than this. We've seen equations like y equals 2x plus 4. Right? We know that's a linear equation where the slope is 2 and the y-intercept is 4. But we haven't seen anything like y equals 1/2 times 4x plus 8. We haven't seen anything like that. So the way we handle that, when we look at the 3/4 times 8x plus 12, is we need to distribute that 3/4, right? And we'll see why. So let's rewrite it so we can do that. So y equals 3/4 times the quantity 8x plus 12. All right. The reason is when you look at this problem here, we know the slope is 2. All right. But when we look at this problem, what is the slope? Well, you might think it's 8 or you might think it's 3/4, but in reality it's neither. You see, we need to distribute. Anytime you have a number outside the parentheses like that, you need to distribute it. So in this case, we would get y equals, if you're not so good with your fractions, then we'll have to review it a bit, but for now you can use your calculator and you just say that 3 divided by 4 is 7.5, times that by 8, and you get 6. So we'll say y equals 6x. And then don't forget to distribute to both numbers, so we got to do, we said 3 over 4 was 0.75, so 0.75 times 12 is 9. So we get y equals 6x, was positive, so plus 9. All right, so these two are the same equation, just in a different form, right? So now we can see that the slope isn't 8 or 3/4. The slope is actually 6, right? And the y-intercept is not 12, but 9. Okay, so now we have our equation to work with. So let's make that kind of the focus. And let's remember what the problem is asking. It says, which of the following is not a correct description of the graph? So that means that 3 of these 4 answer choices are correct and 1 of them is wrong. So let's look at the first one. On the graph of the function, when the x value increases by 1 unit, then the y value increases by 6 units. All right, what does that mean? Well, let's look at our equation. We said that 6 was the slope. And remember, slope is the change in y over the change in x. All right, so this is saying that the change in x is 1. Well, first let's say, what was our slope? We said it was 6, and as a fraction you would write it as 6 over 1. So we're saying that the change in y was a positive 6, and the change in x was a positive 1. Okay, so it says here the x value increased by 1 unit, which would be the positive, and the y value also increases by 6 units. So those are both positive. So that checks out. That should be right. Let's go on to the next one. B says the graph of the function crosses the x-axis at negative 3 over 2, 0. That one's a little bit trickier. Not too bad, though, in reality. And I'll show you 2 ways to do it. Okay, so the one was, well, let's see, what was our equation? We had 6x plus 9. Okay, so we had y equals 6x plus 9. Well, the old school way is just to take your equation, plug in one of those values, and see if it checks out to be true. All right, so we can take the x value, plug it in, and see if it spits out 0 for y. So we get y equals 6. We said negative 3/2 was x, so negative 3 over 2 in here, and then it was plus 9. So let's see if that gives us 0 for y. Let's check that out. So let's say, we'll say 6. Let's clear this here so we're not confused. We'll say 6, and we'll write it out just like it's in there. Negative 3 divided by 2, close that parentheses, plus 9. What does that give us? 0. So that checks out. That point is on there. Negative 3 halves for x and 0 for y. So that's good. So 2 already are correct. All right, let's take a look. Let's take a look at C. Okay, we said that our equation was y equals 6x plus 9. And this one says it contains these 3 points. -3, -9, 221, and 327. All right, so it's not too hard to check those problems out. All we got to do is go to y equals in our calculator, plug in our equation, which we said was 6x plus 9. Hit second graph to pull up the table, and then see if those points are on the table. So if I go to -3, if I go to -3 for x, do I get -9? Good, that checks out. Go to 2, 21, that's all good. And then for 3, 27, so that's good, that point checks out. So we've got 3 that we're pretty sure are right, based on the work we've done. But let's look at D anyways. So D says the graph of the function is a line that passes through 0, 9 and has a slope of 1/6. Well, we can go to our table and look at it and say, well, 0, 9. So that's right. That the line does pass through 0, 9. What line are we talking about? Well, if we were to graph it, this is what it would look like. All right. So looking at it, a table of that line, we would say, well, it does pass through 0, 9. Okay. And we also know that because that's the y-intercept, which is right here in our equation. Remember, the y-intercept is when x is 0. All right. So we know that that's the y-intercept. But here it says the slope has a slope of 1/6, and we said that the slope was 6, so that's incorrect. So the correct answer here would be D.